Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Severe MMA Picks and Plays here on the Severe MMA YouTube page. I am Spencer Kite, your friendly neighborhood Spencer man. It is Friday, December 2nd. We are getting ready for UFC Orlando, UFC on ESPN, Thompson versus Holland. An outstanding fight card on Saturday. 15 fights, so it's a big boy. It's going to be a long one, but it should be exciting. It should be entertaining from start to finish. There was a lot to get into with this card, so we will start on our way there. As always, first and foremost, want to give the responsible gambling message. Please understand, as always, I am making these selections with Monopoly money. I am just giving these plays and these picks and these ideas out for free. As look, if betting on fights is your thing, more power to you. I am not racing out and playing all of these units myself. Don't have that kind of wealth, don't have that kind of interest, but this is something that I enjoy and I want to share with everybody. And I urge everyone to please do so responsibly. This is supposed to be a add-on to enjoying the event. This is something that I hope doesn't cause anybody problems. If it does, please check the show notes. We, as always, will have information there for friends, family, or yourselves if there are people in your lives dealing with problem gambling situations for Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ireland. Please check that out. Do not put in anything that you can't afford to lose. The house always wins. This is a losing overall racket. It is tough to make money in a venture like this, in any kind of gambling for that matter. So please, everybody, wager responsibly. Before we get to this weekend's picks and plays, as always, we have to go back to the previous card. That was UFC Vegas 65. Originally, Lewis versus Spivak, turned into, during the event, Zachukwu versus Kutelaba. We went 8-3 with our picks for that fight card. And in terms of the plays, we put 9.55 units in. We earned 14.3 units for a 4.75 unit profit, a just under 50% return on investment. That is a positive. Over the last two events, it's been 28.3 units out, 39.54 units in for 11.24 units of profit and a 37.72% ROI over the last two, which is great. Year to date, however, we're still down. 134.55 units out, 104.02 units in, down 30.53 units overall, negative 22.69% ROI. In terms of the picks for the year, 283, 161-2 with one no contest, a 0.633 win percentage. As I said, going into that last show, even if I went 55-0, I believe was the total number of fights that we were looking at, I wasn't going to get to my lofty bar that I set for myself of a 700 win percentage. But look, 0.633, I'm happy with. It's a good number. I like to increase that and improve on that. This week, we got a big, as I said, a big fight card, a number of fights. And so there's a chance to get into double digits and maybe even high double digits would be nice. So let's just get into it. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Kevin Holland in the main event in the welterweight division. My pick is Stephen Thompson. A little bit of this is just I need to see it from Kevin Holland before I can pick Kevin Holland. I think he's understandably a favorite. Stephen Thompson comes in on a 2-fight losing streak. He turns 40 in February. But it's also one of those things for me where, and I've talked about this. I talked about this on the preview show. I talked about this on 10 Things I Like. I talked about this on One Question. Kevin Holland has stumbled in these spots. I'm not sold on how seriously Kevin Holland takes his career or his craft. I know what Stephen Thompson is going to bring to the table on Saturday. I know what to expect. even though he's been out for just about a year now. Last fight was against Bilal Muhammad last December. I know what I'm going to see from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. As Harry asked on the preview show, will we see sort of a decline in speed or a decline in dexterity and ability to do all the things that he's done well over the course of his career? That's a huge question, going to be a huge factor in this fight, undoubtedly. But I'm going to side with the veteran. I'm going to side with the guy that I have seen win big fights multiple times throughout his career. Just 2 years ago, beat an up-and-comer in Jeff Neal. Prior to that, beat Vicente Luque as Vicente Luque was ascending. And I'm just not sure that Kevin Holland at this stage of his career and just in general is as good as those fighters and is going to come out here and show me something over 5 rounds against Stephen Thompson, who knows how to fight 5 rounds, who knows how to manage his gas tank and utilize all the things that are going to be at his disposal on Saturday. And so I'm siding with the veteran. I'm siding with the underdog. And that leads into my plays, which is half a unit on Thompson on the money line at plus 130, which would return 1.15 units. It's half a unit on Thompson to win by decision at plus 400, which would return 2.50 units. And then I've also got 1 unit on over 3.5 rounds at plus 100 for 2 unit return. 1 unit on over 4.5 rounds at plus 137 for a 2.37 unit return. And 1 unit on the fight to go the distance at plus 150 for a 2.5 unit return. My thinking is that as much as Kevin Holland earned finishes in each of his first 2 welterweight fights, Stephen Thompson 2 fights back spent the entire fight dealing with Gilbert Burns on his back, attacking him, wrestling, grappling, all of those things, and did everything that he needed to do to not get submitted. And so if Stephen Thompson can make the right choices in a fight like that against Gilbert Burns, someone of his caliber and his substance, I think he can do so against Kevin Holland as well, right? So the over and the fight to go the distance, it doesn't matter who wins. So if Holland is successful, I still think Wonderboy can do what he needs to do to get it to a decision. If it plays out the way that I see it, it turns into a point fighting fight. It turns into 25 minutes of Stephen Thompson wisely working at range, wisely working at space. While there's always the possibility that he lands something big, that he lands, that over the shoulder kick that he throws, the moneymaker as his pops calls it, or he gets into a situation where something lands and he's able to capitalize and find a finish. We haven't seen that as much as of late. He is increasingly become more and more of a point fighter the longer his career has gone, the deeper into his career we have gotten. And so I just think that without having that wrestling advantage that has been kryptonite for Kevin Holland, we are much more likely to see a bunch of 10-9s, 50-45, or some variant of score in favor of in favor of Stephen Thompson. And then if it does happen to be a Kevin Holland situation, Stephen Thompson's been knocked out once in his career, and it was by Anthony Pettis in a fight where Wonderboy was winning and just got caught. Now, Kevin Holland certainly could catch him. Those things aren't impossible. But my analysis, my look, my feel of this fight is that we get a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson win. It goes the full 25, and hopefully we're able to cash to close out the show. We stay in the welterweight division. Bryan Barberena versus Rafael dos Anjos. My pick is RDA. I think this fight just plays out and favors RDA in too many ways. He is a colossal favorite in terms of the betting line, and we'll get to the plays here momentarily. But stylistically and just the way he approaches things, he is a more well-rounded, probably better overall version of Bryan Barberena. And so we talked about this on the preview show, right? Bam Bam likes to get into these mucky, dirty, grimy fights. So does RDA. He is at his best when he is coming forward and walking you down and being the initiator and being the instigator of things and just putting you under pressure for 25 minutes. And we know he can do it, especially at this weight where he doesn't have to suck down to get to 155. And so in a fight of this magnitude, that is also only a 3-round fight, I think we see Dos Anjos come out, step on the gas right away, and never let off. Just stay in Bam Bam's face. Now, he's going to catch some shots. He's going to get hit because Bryan Barberena hits you. He makes sure of that. But the option is there for RDA to drag this to the ground if possible. I'm not saying he's going to be able to do it with ease or that he's actually going to be able to keep it there, but that is a wrinkle that he has, right? Last time out, and I talked to Bam Bam about this going into this fight. He said, look, Robbie Lawler, I know what Robbie's going to do. We're going to come out. We're going to take each other's heads off. I don't have to worry about takedown attempts. You got to worry about them with RDA. He can put you on the canvas. And if he does, he's got great jiu-jitsu, but he's also got great pressure and control and an ability to return you to the canvas every time you get up. And sooner than you know it, 5 minutes is gone and you're down a round. When we get to the plays, however, there's nothing of value to me on the favorite side. There's nothing of value to me on RDA, who is minus 550 as a favorite where I get my information. And so from a play standpoint, I go the other way. And it's a quarter unit on Barberena money line at plus 400 for a 1.25 unit return, and a quarter unit on Bam Bam by decision at plus 1,000 for a 2.75 unit return. And here's the thinking. What if just in case, this is a just in case play for me. What if this good run that Bam Bam is on that has gotten him to this place is a true representation of a guy that's figured it out and is starting to put it all together and things are coming together for him, coupled with RDA just being half a step slower than he was last time he fought, right? Last time he fought, he got knocked out in the 5th round by Rafael. What if that shot took a little steam off him and he's getting up there in age? He's 38 or 39. What if this is just where those things start to collide of Bam Bam going up, RDA coming down a little bit? And so plus 400 is too big a number for me to not get a little bit of action on. And then I just don't think that Bryan Barberena is going to finish. If he does win, I don't think he's going to finish RDA because RDA is tough to put away. It took Rafael 4 full rounds before he was able to find a shot that landed and finished. And so that plus 1,000 for a massive 2.5 unit profit, if it happens to land, was just too good to pass up. We move to the flyweights. Matheus Nicolau and Matt Schnell. My pick is Matheus Nicolau. I just think he is far too technical, far too crisp, far too sound in every facet for Matt Schnell, who thrives in chaos, but also gets hit a lot, right? We saw that fight with Sumudarji back in July. It's a hell of a fight. It's my fight of the year so far because of the shifts in momentum and the ebbs and flows of momentum in that fight. But part of what makes it such a fascinating fight and an incredible finish for Matt Schnell is that he's out on his feet 3 times, 4 times before he's able to rally. And I don't think Nicolau gives him that opportunity. If he gets him hurt, he'll finish him. And if he doesn't, he's not going to chase a finish. He's not going to chase even getting him hurt because he's happy and content to work from the outside and be patient and be smart and wrestle when he needs to and grapple when he needs to. And so I'm just not sure that Matt Schnell is going to be able to inject enough chaos into this to throw Nicolau off his game. Now, maybe that last fight sparked something in Matt Schnell. We don't know. Maybe it took something off Matt Schnell. We don't know. We'll find out Saturday. In terms of plays, this is a stay away for me, in part because the odds are too far apart. Nicolau, I believe, is a minus 400 favorite. I don't like that number. I also don't like sort of the the return on the Matt Schnell side of things. And there's also just that little bit of Matt Schnell as an agent of chaos, right? That dude is a Wolverine you're throwing into a room full of chickens, and who the hell knows what the hell's going to happen when he gets in there. Something crazy could happen. I said it on the preview show yesterday. These guys could go out there, and maybe Matt Schnell is just the guy that says, hey, you like to be technical. You like to be patient. I don't want to do any of those things. Let's just go crazy. And something weird happens. And so for me, it is a stay away. I think Nicolau gets the victory. I'm not super confident in it. I think he is the better fighter, but Matt Schnell's a wild man. And when you start facing a wild man, wild things can happen. We move to the big boys, Tuivasa and Sergei Pavlovich. I love this fight. My pick is Tuivasa. I've talked about this throughout the week. I'm not sure why Tuivasa is the underdog here. Yes, he is coming off a loss, and Pavlovich enters on a 4-fight winning streak. But this sport and breaking down these matchups to me is never as simple as who's been winning and who's been losing. It's about who you faced and how you looked in those matchups. And I thought Tuivasa looked great in his loss to Cyril Gane earlier this year in Paris. Prior to that, he won 5 straight, earning 5 straight stoppages. And he is, to me, to my estimation, the best fighter in the moment that Sergei Pavlovich has faced in his career. And that's not a knock on Alistair Overeem, the only man to defeat Pavlovich to this point. That's not a knock on Derek Lewis, who lost to him last time in a hasty stoppage. I just think that Ty has put things together. I think as we talked about on the preview show, somebody came to him after he had that 3-fight losing streak that was capped by a loss, I believe, to Blagoy Ivanov, and said, hey man, you can be better than this. Like, I know you're having fun and it's been okay, but it's 3 wins and now 3 losses. You can be really good at this if you just commit. If you just, when it's time to go to camp and get ready for these fights, you just invest and you just put the energy in and put the effort in. And we've seen the results. Yes, he lost last time out. He lost to a former interim champion, a guy whose only loss is Francis Ngannou in a close fight, a fight he was winning through 2 rounds. And so for me, it's a little bit similar to the main event where I need to see Sergei Pavlovich beat someone of this stature before I'm going to say he can beat guys of this stature. That could cost me 100%. That could result in an L because this guy is ready to take that leap, or it's heavyweights, and whoever finds the button first is getting their hand raised. But I do think Tuivasa can take a shot. We've seen that. It's been proven. I don't know how well Pavlovich can handle the cinder blocks that are coming from West Sydney on Saturday. And so, as I said, my pick is Tuivasa. In terms of my plays, it's a unit on the Tuivasa money line at plus 175 for a 2.75 unit return. It's a unit on Tuivasa to finish at plus 220 for a 3.2 unit return. It's a unit on Tuivasa to finish in round 1 at plus 375 for a 4.75 unit return. And it's half a unit on Tuivasa to finish in round 2 at plus 1,000 for a 5.50 unit return. Listen, this isn't getting out of the second round. I don't think it gets out of the first round, but that plus 1,000 just in case we get to round 2, as Augusto Sakai did. We got to round 3 with Gane. He is even better than Pavlovich, clearly. And so that's where that one gets to. But I don't think this makes it more than 10 minutes. And so we put that little 0.5 in there, half a unit in there on the round 2, just in case, because plus 1,000 is too delicious to not just cover. I would kick myself in the ass if these guys get out of round 1 and Tuivasa comes out and finishes 30 seconds into round 2 and it's plus 1,000 and I didn't have anything. But I think it ends early. I think it ends with a finish. Obviously, I think it's And I think it's Tuivasa. And so this is my weekly sort of stack bet where I like every element of it. I like the money line. I like the finish. I like the finish round. And so if we get a round one finish, it's 3 units out and it's 10.7 units in. Like, we're just about covered for the night if that hits. If Tai Tuivasa finishes in round one, we're just about straight for the weekend. I like those kinds of bets. I like those kinds of bets with guys that to me should be the favorite, right? This feels like a should be the favorite. I believe Tai Tuivasa is ranked higher. He's fought better competition. Even if you just go last time out, I don't care about the results. I care about who you've been in there against. And I trust Tai Tuivasa a little more right now. This could be 3.5 units down the drain, but I like my chances. We move to the middleweights, Jack Hermansson and Roman Dolidze. My pick here is Hermansson simply. Again, this is going to be a theme throughout. I need to see Dolidze beat a guy like this before I can say he's going to beat guys like this consistently. Jack Hermansson is a polished, experienced, technical, professional fighter. There is zero flash to the Joker's game. There's nothing. He's not coming out here and throwing crazy stuff. He's got a really nice, kind of slick submission game when he gets into it. But as we saw with his fight against Chris Curtis last time out, he is happy to just jab you in the face and move and stick and move and stick and move. And it's going to be on Dolidze to change that. It's going to be on him to get inside or land power shots or turn this into a wrestling match where even there, he's got to be careful because Jack Hermansson can wrestle and Jack Hermansson can grapple. And so I just think coming off of a victory over Chris Curtis, as I mentioned, where Hermansson has alternated wins and losses for the last few fights. And I know from speaking to him in the past that is frustrating. That's not a thing that he enjoys. You want to build some momentum. He's been on the cusp of contention. At times, he's now sort of, to me, settled into a Neil Magny role where he is the guy that faces up-and-comers like Dolidze. And I know that this is a short notice matchup and this wasn't originally scheduled. It was supposed to be Derek Brunson, not Dolidze. But this feels like where Jack Hermansson fits, right? Sean Strickland earlier this year, Chris Curtis. Now we get Dolidze. And you just got to prove to me that you can beat him before I can pick you, before I can pick against a guy like Hermansson. I got to see him beat by a guy like this. I believe I picked against him in the Strickland fight because I thought it would play out the way that it did. And that was a super close fight. You want to go back and rewatch that one and tell me that Hermansson won? I haven't rewatched it, but there can be a case. It was a split decision. There's a case. And so for Dolidze, who has looked good, no disrespect to the big Georgian over the last couple of fights, terrific finish of Kyle Daukaus. Sent Phil Hawes to the shadow realm just a couple weeks ago. Looked great. Come out and do it against Jack Hermansson, and then we'll really talk. Then I will really, really pay attention. I'm paying attention, but you got to beat a guy like this before I can pick you to beat a guy like this. In terms of plays, this is an absolute stay away for me. This is no thank you. I just want to see what happens because I'm not sure that Roman Dolidze can't beat Jack Hermansson. It's not out of the realm of possibility to me that Dolidze can come out and win this fight. I don't like any of the props. I don't like any of the sort of anything that's on the table in terms of that buffet. And so it's just learning my lessons from previous events, from previous situations where I've wanted to chase some stuff. I don't have to have any action on this one. Just want to see what happens. Like this fight. Love this fight. Let's just see how it plays out. We stay in the middleweight division to close out the main card. Eryk Anders and Kyle Daukaus. My pick is Daukaus. I just think he is, I think the age difference, it's 6 years, 7 years. I think that certainly factors in. I'm a little leery of Kyle returning as quickly as he is after getting his whole face broke by Dolidze in the summer. But having talked to him, he's comfortable. He's good. He's got titanium plates in his face and everything's fixed and everything's fine. He's been cleared, so he's good. I shouldn't be as worried about him as if he's not, but I know his family is. So there's that. But I just think weapon-wise, skill-wise, approach-wise, Eryk Anders has years ago stopped being an exciting fighter. It's like he lost that fight to Lyoto Machida by split decision down in Brazil when he would have been 11-0 and moved into contention in the middleweight division, and it just changed something. He hasn't been the same since. He's been wildly inconsistent and kind of just middling since then. And it's look to throw one, not really use the jab, look for a big shot here, maybe a little low kick, a little bit of wrestling, but it's not great wrestling. It's kind of just come in on your hips and hold and try to drag you out. And a guy like that, Kyle Daukaus, in my opinion, in my estimation, in my analysis, will beat every day of the week. I think there are opportunities here for Kyle Daukaus to find a finish, to chase some subs. I think there is the possibility of us seeing the Darce Knight in action. Those big long arms. Eryk Anders leaves his neck out on a takedown attempt. Kyle Daukaus gets underneath and locks something up. That is definitely a possibility. But much like the Hermansson Dolidze fight, this is a no play for me. I got nothing. Because I'm just not 100% sold. I looked at the submission prop or the finish prop for Daukaus. There is some juice there. There is a number there that's, if you want to chase it, but to me, it's not fully worth it. I want to try to be a little more selective with some of these wagers, use that money elsewhere that I think it gets in better. And so I stayed away from it. I like Kyle Daukaus to get the win, get back in the win column after getting his whole face broke. Let's see what happens. We hit the prelims and we go back to the welterweight division. Niko Price takes on Phil Rowe. My pick is Niko Price, but I'm not very confident. He hasn't fought in over a year. He is a better fighter than Phil Rowe has faced to date. He's coming in off a loss. I believe I should have this up. He is coming in off a loss. Niko Price is one of those guys that his record is not fully reflective of who he is as a fighter in the UFC, right? He's got some entertaining losses. He's got 2 losses to Vicente Luque. Oh, well, lots of people lose to Vicente Luque. And so I just think that taken in their totality, their 2 careers in the UFC, all of Niko Price's fights, Phil Rowe's 3 fights, lost his debut, won his last 2. It's another case of I need to see you beat a guy of this level before I pick you to beat a guy of this level. Now, what also adds to that for me in picking Price is that the guys that Phil Rowe has actually beaten, Jason Witt last time out, Orion Kosi before that, are low end of the division fighters. They're guys that are going to come out there and let Phil Rowe do Phil Rowe things. They're going to, and Jason Witt had success in the early stages of that fight before Phil Rowe committed to working behind his very long 80-inch reach jab. And Niko Price is just a guy that's not going to let you just stand out there and jab him to death. He's not going to stand out there on the end of things and just be like, cool, let's do this for 15 minutes. He's a lunatic. He's going to come in and chase you down. And his last couple of fights have gone the distance, and he's not a guy that likes to go the distance. And I just think after a year away, fighting in his home state, fighting another Florida-based guy for sort of divisional statewide bragging rights, I think we see a good performance out of Price. I think we see him get back into the win column. I think we see a finish as well. But on the play side, again, 3 straight. No, sir. Because Niko Price has been off for a year. Because Phil Rowe maybe just needed to lose that debut from jitters and all the different things to figure some stuff out, to get moving in the right direction and work with the crew at Fusion XL and Julian Williams to figure out the best way to be Phil Rowe inside the octagon. And so I just go, no thanks. Enjoy the fight. If there are plays that you like, more power to you. I'm staying away. I'm taking whatever money I may have thought about spending here and spending it elsewhere. We move to the strawweight division. Angela Overkill Hill against Emily Gordina Ducote. My pick is Emily Ducote. I think she is, as I've said previously, a terrific addition to this division. I think she's a contender. And I think it will be middle of next year that people realize, oh, this girl's a contender. This woman's the real deal. It may be after this fight, because we know what Angela Hill brings to the table. We know who she is in this division and what it means to beat her. And I think Ducote beats her. I think this is one of those fights where Angela Hill pays a little bit for some of the hesitation and low power and medium volume approach that she has. When she wants to get going, when she gets thrown and she gets in a rhythm, Angela Hill's great. She can look great, but there's too many times where she gets stuck and just freezes for that extra half beat. And I think Emily Ducote makes her pay in that half beat. She chopped down Jessica Panay in her debut earlier this year. I think she looks to do a lot of the same against Angela Hill. I'm not worried about this going to the ground because I think Emily Ducote has a better ground game overall than Angela Hill. And I just think that 28-year-old versus 37-year-old, ascending versus we know where she's at, kind of stationed in the division, settled in the division, things favor, everything tilts towards Ducote. For me, there is the revenge element for Angela Hill because Ducote took out her BFF, Jessica Panay, earlier this year. But I just think Gordina gets the job done. In terms of plays, this is my largest single play of the day. It is 2 units on Ducote to win by decision at plus 150 to return 5.0 units. My thinking is simply Angela Hill doesn't get finished. For the most part, throughout her career, she has not been finished. Now, Rena Marcos got her. Rose Namajunas got her. Fine. Generally speaking, she doesn't get finished. Emily Ducote is a finisher. She has a bunch of finishes on her record from her, even just from her Invicta days, right? Won the Invicta belt with a beautiful combination that Craig Allen had up on his Twitter page earlier today, or earlier in the week, I should say. Right hand that just wobbles and stiffens and straightens and like puts Danielle Taylor into the like, just come and hit me one more time and I'm done. Kicks her in the head. Beautiful, 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 beautiful combination. But against the two really kind of like, this is going to sound disrespectful, against the two truly skilled former UFC fighters or current UFC fighters that she faced in Juliana Lima and Jessica Panay, Ducote went the distance. And as much as finishes of Janessa Morandin and Taylor and Alicia Zapatella are good finishes, I think against a seasoned, smart, crafty fighter like Angela Hill, who is going to be throwing some volume back at her, who's going to bring some danger to her, we're more likely to see this go the distance. And so if you're going to give me plus money on Ducote, who I think wins this fight, winning by decision, I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to jump in on it. And so it is that 2 units, return 5, make a 3 profit, and let's go. If we take that with Ty later in the night, we're clear for the week. This is all we're after. Profits. Get it in, get it out, go home. Let's keep this run going. Move to the lightweight division, Clay Guida and Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman. My pick here is Clay Guida, and I think some people are maybe going to be surprised about that. He is the underdog. Hot Sauce comes in, I believe, at like a minus 170. And I'm not sure why. I think it's because prior to his last 2 losses, which are 2 very talented fighters in Matheus Gamrot and Beneil Dariush. He was on a nice little winning streak, including a victory over Jim Miller. And Clay Guida comes in off a submission loss, a first round submission loss at that to Claudio Puelles. But my thinking here is that Hot Sauce has been off for a while. It's been off for over a year now since that loss to Gamrot, where he got absolutely clattered by a beautiful 1-2 and got knocked out before that by Dariush as well, spinning back fist. Nasty stuff. And my thinking is Clay Guida can still wrestle, man. He can still just put you on the mat and beat you up on the canvas. He can still just take you down and grind you out and do Clay Guida things for 15 minutes. He's really goddamn good at it. And it's not like Scott Holtzman is the kind of defensive wrestler or overall striker that is going to just make you pay for those entries and keep you from getting it on his hips. Back a little earlier in his career, lost to Nick Lentz. I think this plays out pretty similarly. Just a bunch of takedowns from Clay Guida. And when Hot Sauce gets up, Guida looks to take him down again, and they'll battle a little bit on the feet. And Clay's hands have come along over the course of his career. They're not terrific, but they're not junk. They're not terrible anymore. Way back in the day, they were terrible. They're all right now. He can hold his own. In a fight like this, he can hold his own on the feet. Plus, he goes in and he wrestles and he wrestles and he wrestles. And so give me the guy that's been active. Give me the guy that I know can wrestle. Normally, this is sort of a deviation from the usual tenets that Harry and I both sort of subscribe to of in close fights, give me the better athlete. Scott Holtzman is the better athlete overall. But Clay Guida, with the wrestling, with the activity, not coming off consecutive knockout losses and a year on the sidelines, is the pick for me. In terms of plays, there's nothing I like. This is a pretty close fight in terms of the betting line. If Guida was a little bit longer odds, or if Guida by decision was a little bit longer, I'd probably get in there. It was something I looked at earlier in the week. It didn't get to where I wanted it to get to. So I'm just staying away from it because it's two lightweights sort of towards the tail end of their careers in the middle of the division. Wouldn't be not shocked if Scott Holtzman wins this fight, certainly. And so for me, pick Guida, stay away from wagers, and just move forward. Wait and see that Emily Ducote fight and everything else that follows. Sticking in the division, we get Michael Johnson and Marc Diakiese before the Guida Holtzman fight. My pick here is Marc Diakiese. It's pretty straightforward. He is on a 2-fight winning streak. He has looked very good by turning back to his wrestling, getting back to his grappling roots after everybody thought for a while that he was just a striker. Nah, man. Marc Diakiese, very good wrestler, tremendous athlete as well. And Michael Johnson is just look, even though I think he won his fight with Jamie Mullarkey last time out, it was a very, very close fight. And I say this with all due respect to Jamie Mullarkey. If you get into a split decision with Jamie Mullarkey, you're going to lose to Marc Diakiese. That's just how I see it. Because Diakiese's 29 and Michael Johnson's 36. And Marc Diakiese feels like almost a little bit of the evolutionary Michael Johnson while being a better athlete. He's next gen Michael Johnson with more explosion and an overall better athlete. That's my assessment. And so I think we see Marc Diakiese just keep doing what he's been doing these last couple fights. Get in on good level changes when his opponents make mistakes and overreach, and Michael Johnson makes mistakes and overreaches all the damn time, and then tries to capitalize on either a mental lapse or Michael Johnson looking for a way out, which Michael Johnson makes mental lapses and has occasionally been known to look for a way out. And so I think Diakiese rolls. I think this is a one-sided fight. I think the odds in terms of the money line reflect that. But in terms of plays, I like what you can get on the finish side of things here for Marc Diakiese. So it's half a unit for Diakiese to finish at plus 240 for a 1.7 unit return. It's a quarter unit on a second round finish at plus 850 for 2.38 units back, and a quarter unit for a third round finish at plus 1,400 for 3.75 units returned. If Marc Diakiese is going to finish this fight, I do think it happens outside of the first round. Round one is for draining that energy, making those reads, getting a feel for where things are on the ground, how Michael Johnson is going to respond to things. And then round 2 and 3 is where we start looking and really working towards a finish. If he goes out and finishes him in the first round, fine. We have that finish prop at plus 240. So we get back 1.7 units. We've laid out one. Even if we don't cash those round props, it's still a profit on the fight. And that's always, as I talk about all the time, that's always the aim here. If he gets the finish in the first, great. If he gets it later, even better. Be interesting to see if he can get it. He hasn't really worked towards them these last 2 fights. I do think that's a little bit of making sure you're comfortable, making sure you're getting these victories that are very much needed. And now I think we see him open up a little bit more on Saturday against the Menace. Move to the featherweight division, Darren Elkins versus Jonathan Pearce. My pick is Pearce. I'm going to side with the younger guy here. He's got 4 wins and 4 starts at featherweight. 3 of those are finishes. Looked good last time out against Makwan Amirkhani. Looked good against Omar Morales before that. I can't remember who he debuted against. I want to say maybe Darrick Minner, but maybe that's just because Darrick Minner's in my mind because of, things that happened in Ontario today with the AGCO, who I used to be licensed by, deciding that UFC gambling is no longer a thing that's going to happen in the province of Ontario. I'm pulling it up, so bear with me. I would like to get you the correct information. So this is quality podcasting right here. But listen, Pearce is my pick because he is the younger fighter. He is on the better overall streak, the overall superior run of success. I think there is a greater likelihood that he does enough to get a victory here. It was Kai Kamaka that he beat in his divisional debut, not Darrick Minner. I think there's a greater likelihood that Jonathan Pearce wins this fight than Darren Elkins wins this fight. And the odds reflect that, right? Jonathan Pearce is a heavy favorite. Darren Elkins is 37, been in there 26 times. This will be number 27. Pearce is on a run. Yes, Darren Elkins got back into the win column last time, but prior to that, got knocked out by Cub Swanson. This is everything lining up to better athlete, younger fighter, better recent results. We lean in favor of Pearce. But when we get to the plays, there's nothing of value to me on the Pearce side of things. There are, however, things I like on the Elkins side of things. Not really a hedge against the pick, but just a set of just in case this number is too good to not just drop a little bit onto it. So it's a quarter unit on the Elkins money line at plus 350 for 1.13 units back. It's a quarter unit on Elkins by decision at plus 900 for 2.5 units back. And it's 0.2 units on Elkins to finish in the third round at plus 2,800 for 5.8 units back. Look, we have seen Darren Elkins puke and rally a whole bunch of times. Is it impossible that Darren Elkins goes out and out wrestles Jonathan Pearce for 2 rounds? Not in my books. And you're going to give me plus 900 that he does that? Even he does that to the effectiveness that 2 out of 3 judges see it in his favor? I'm going to take that. As much as I like what Jonathan Pearce has done, and I've advocated for him this week and coming out of his last few fights, that this is a guy we need to pay attention to. I like what he's doing. These numbers for Elkins are just too good to not just have a little taste of. Just a little something. Is it crazy to think that Darren Elkins, even if he loses the first 2 rounds and loses them badly, is able to not get finished and then take advantage of a tired Jonathan Pearce in round 3? I give you the Mirsad Bektic fight. Plus 2,800. 5.6 unit profit if it hits. Let's go. Flyer of the week, Darren Elkins, round 3 finish. Let's go. We move to the flyweight division, Tracy Cortez and Amanda Ribas. My pick here is Ribas. And look, I've been saying it all week. I've said it on the preview show and my 2 shows earlier this week. I might just be, this may be a perfect blinders and infatuation, rose-colored glasses fight, right? This may be, I'm not giving Tracy Cortez enough credit and I'm giving Amanda Ribas too much credit kind of fight. Because Cortez has won 10 straight. She's unbeaten in the UFC. She's looked pretty good. She has a good top game, good wrestling, might be able to just go in there and turn this into 15 minutes of grind. Entirely possible. I picked Melissa Gatto last time out, and Tracy Cortez put her on the ground, neutralized her power, neutralized a lot of her submission game, and was just like, cool, we're going to wrestle for 15 minutes. I'll take my victory. See you later. But I think Amanda Ribas is the better overall athlete. I think she is the better striker. And I think that she knows those things and goes out and actually looks to just strike. This is the one time I want to see Amanda Ribas actually just look to strike. She tried to do it with Marina Rodriguez. Very bad decision. Tried to do it against Caitlin Chukagian. Less bad decision, but still a bad decision because she lost. She didn't get knocked out, though. Twice by Marina Rodriguez, for that matter. And so I just think the Brazilian can go out here and be the longer fighter, be the more effective fighter, smash home leg kicks early, often, both legs, all the time. Throw out that jab. Throw out the odd overhand right. Tracy Cortez's defense, in my estimation, isn't the best. She can be hit. We've seen that going back throughout her career. And just don't give her chances to wrestle. Just don't put yourself in spots. Don't back up into the fence and behind, as Harry calls it, the tram line, and give yourself a chance for her to get in on your hips and dump you to the ground and drag you down and keep you there. Be long, be loose, be the athlete, go out and get a victory, Amanda Ribas. In terms of plays, it's just a very simple quarter unit on Ribas to finish at plus 350. I think it can, I honestly think she can finish either standing or on the ground, depending on how the fight plays out, right? We've seen her get finishes on the ground before. We've seen the armbar against Paige Van Zandt and Emily Whitmire. I do think there is the opportunity to finish on the ground if the fight gets there, and it very well could. But I also think that there's a chance that she just batters Tracy Cortez on the feet. She has more power, and she is able to find a right hand that does some damage and causes a wobble and gives her an opportunity to get in on a choke or just finish pounding out a victory. And so it's just a little something, plus 350 for 1.13 units back, nearly a full unit return, but just a quarter unit out. Nothing crazy. Just see what happens. 3 more fights to go. We stick around in the lightweight division. Natan Levy versus Gennaro Valdez. My pick is Levy, and look, it is not confident at all. If you followed my work back when it was on Substack, you know there was a time that I had the Natan Levy number, which, short version, was that I went back and when Levy was debuting, he was undefeated. I went back and said, like, okay, but what were the records of the guys after he beat them? Because when they were coming in, when he was fighting them, it looked shiny and nice. Looked great, right? Something like 11-2 or 12-3 and looked like he's beating good competition. Well, those guys didn't fight anybody and didn't have success afterwards. And so the Natan Levy number was born. And then Levy went out and lost his debut, and I cashed a ticket on Rafa Garcia, and we continued. And so I'm not sure. I'm not very confident in this. My thought is that he can wrestle Gennaro Valdez if he wants to, but Valdez is happy to come out here and strike. And if this starts as a striking fight and these guys go out there and just throw hands at each other and throw shots at each other, it's a coin flip because Valdez can crack. He hit Matt Frivola with some good stuff before getting finished himself. We saw Levy tire in his fight against Mike Breeden, and Mike Breeden have some success at times. But Levy does have that wrestling ability. He does have that grappling ability, and that's why I pick him. I think he will go in and change levels effectively and put this fight on the canvas and do his level best to not get hurt and not get hit and find a way to just grind this out. Given that I'm not confident in the selection, you should know already what is coming in terms of the plays. No, thank you. Complete stay away from me. There's no props that I like. There's no money line that I like. I looked at Valdez by finish because I think the dude can crack, and I think Natan Levy is hittable. But end of the day, staying away from it. Let this fight happen. Away we go. We go to the featherweight division. Marcelo Rojo versus newcomer Francis Marshall. My pick here is Rojo. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with the Argentine. I asked early in the week if this is just a case of too much too soon for Francis Marshall. My read of it is that it is. So I watched his fight with Connor Matheus on the Contender Series. I recap Contender Series for UFC.com. I've watched it back subsequently. It's a good victory, but it's not a great victory. It's more a testament of Connor Matheus' resilience than anything else to me. I think if Francis Marshall is a more complete fighter, if he has more power, if he has more experience, he gets Connor Matheus out of there because he had him hurt multiple times. And he had him in positions and in spots where seasoned guys know how to get you out of there. They know how to show you the door and just be like, here, I know how much you hurt right now and how much this sucks. We can just go over here and this can be all over. And so it's not that I think he's not a good prospect. I think long-term, right? 23 years old, unbeaten, protege of Kurt Pellegrino. So he's getting good training. He's working with a guy that is, succeeded at the highest level to a certain degree in Batman. But 23 against a 34-year-old that's been in there in some wars and been in there in some battles, both in the UFC and outside of the UFC, feels like a little bit too much. Feels like biting off a little bit too much in the debut. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Marshall comes out and looks great, and we see further development since the summer. But I'm going to side with the veteran. I'm going to side with the more experienced, the guy that I've got more tape to look at, the guy that I've got more seasoning behind for the pick. In terms of the plays, this is also a stay away. It's a close fight in terms of the odds, in terms of the money lines. Marshall is a small favorite. Rojo's a small dog. There's no props. There's no round totals, any of that I like. And so just let it happen. Just go and fight, boys. I look forward to watching it. Go do your thing. Saturday's opener, Yasmin Haragui and Estela Nunes in the flyweight division. My pick here is Haragui. I don't really understand this matchup. I know that it was supposed to happen for Haragui's debut, which ended up being against Yasmin Lucindo in San Diego. But just because it was on the books once doesn't mean we need to get it again. Haragui, I was wrong earlier in this week. I believe I spoke about her earlier this week as 6-0. She is in fact 9-0. Estela Nunes is 0-2 in the UFC. She's 1-3 in her last 4 fights, and those are the only things I really need to know. She starts well and fades pretty quickly, and I just think overall, in every facet of the game, Haragui is the better fighter, and that will show in spades on Saturday. In terms of plays, we sort of invest in that. And so it's half a unit on Haragui to finish at plus 210 for a 1.55 unit return, quarter unit to finish in the second round at plus 750 for 2.13 units, and a quarter unit to finish in the third round at plus 1200 for 3.25 units. Very similar to the Marc Diakiese fight, right? Thinks she can finish. She's finished multiple fights prior to arriving in the UFC. Estela Nunes, the 3 fights she's lost, 2 of them are by stoppage, both by submission. Yasmin Haragui, her Instagram is Yasmin Jitsu. She's a black belt. She's skilled. You see where I'm going. And so I think, much like the Diakiese fight, Round 1 is making reads, getting feels, figuring out best path of attack, best road to victory, kind of drain some of that energy from Estela Nunes. And then rounds 2 and 3 are get her on the canvas, find a way to get a finish, and hopefully help Spencer cash some tickets. Before we get out of here, as always, we have to talk about the parlays. So the main card, 6-fight parlay at 0.1 unit of Stephen Thompson, RDA, Matheus Nicolau, Tuivasa, Jack Hermansson, and Kyle Daukaus, all combined up at plus 1983 in terms of odds. It was a good year. I was 5. Returns 2.08 units. The 9-fight preliminary card parlay at 0.1 unit of Niko Price. Let's get this on camera. Niko Price, Emily Ducote, Clay Guida, Marc Diakiese, Jonathan Pearce, Amanda Ribas, Natan Levy, Marcelo Rojo, and Yasmin Haragui, plus 18,244, which would mean a return of 18.22 units. That would be lovely. That would get us, if that hits, that means that some of those other bets that we already covered hit. And that means we're plus money on the year, not just on the day, but on the year. We're not talking about the day. We're talking about the year. God, that would be lovely. And then the full card, all 15 fights. We go 15-0. So Thompson, RDA, Nicolau, Tuivasa, Hermansson, Daukaus, Price, Ducote, Guida, Diakiese, Pearce, Ribas, Levy, Rojo, Haragui. 0.1 unit. 382,184 for a return of 379.41 units. If that one hits, we are doing circles. We are dancing. Life is grand. We're popping bottles. We're just going crazy. It's not going to hit. But if it does, it's not going to, because it's rare and it's 15 fights. It's hard. It's hard to get 6 fights. It's hard to get that main card that only returns 2.08 units. But I tell you what, we make the play because just in case, it's just a little 0.1 unit that we put out there. God, it would be nice. One of these would hit. It would be lovely. Any of these hit. It will be lovely. We're on a 2-fight, 2-event winning streak. We're going to make it 3. I'm confident. I'm happy. I'm excited. I cannot wait for tomorrow. UFC on ESPN. Holland, Thompson versus Holland. Excuse me. UFC Orlando, whatever you want to call it. I will be on Severe MMA, recapping the action. Harry and I will be back on Tuesday, recapping the action with the takeaway. Before that, Shawnee and I believe Graham will be on the big show, but if not Graham, probably IO. But the big show will talk about this event as well. And then we'll just get into the next one because it's UFC 182 after that. It's a nice little card as well. Hopefully we come into that on a 3-card profit streak. Hopefully you come out of Saturday up some money, having cashed some tickets, having had some fun, having gambled responsibly, having wagered responsibly. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following. We appreciate you. We love you. All the best with your picks, with your plays. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next time.